I've been sitting on this rant for a while. When I played The Man Who Erased His Name, I just found the concept of the Great Dissolution, which is more expanded upon in Yakuza Infinite Wealth. I mean, I gotta start calling this game. I get so used to calling this game Yakuza. So if I bounce back and forth between Yakuza and Like a Dragon, excuse that. When I played the Infinite Wealth, and I haven't got very far because Power World's just been way funner, and the interjection of feminist rants into 8's script and the blatant changes from localizers has really just, I don't know, I just don't really feel hyped to finish this game, but I probably will because the gameplay itself is still pretty good, even if the story has become incredibly lackluster. This rant's going to break down into two parts. The first part is going to be me discussing why the Great Dissolution, the concept behind Yakuza's franchise right now, is just this insanely stupid, poorly thought out story mechanism that would not even work in the game's own universe, even though it might be considered like a parallel universe for our own that very closely mimics our own, but with its own, political tensions and actions. And the second part is why I believe Sega is going to be in for a very rough time going forward based on their actions right now. So I can just double up on these two topics. And we'll just do like one good rant here right now. So the Great Dissolution. To catch people up who either are unfamiliar with it or haven't played the game or just don't remember. So in the Yakuza universe, there's two main Yakuza groups. There's the Tojo Clan and the Omni Alliance. And by time of Yakuza 7, the Tojo Clan had really fallen apart. So the Omni Alliance took over all the territory, but the main antagonist decided that, hey, I'm going to use the law because he became a politician, and I'm going to have the Yakuza be my private army, while basically controlling the world through politics, and pull the strings of the new head of the duology faction. Now, at the end, part of the reason why they're going to dissolve the Yakuza was partially because they wanted to reset the universe, and partially in-universe was because it became too difficult to be a Yakuza. They were going after the heads for the actions of their underlings, and it just was time to get rid of the Yakuza. And also because they wanted to deprive this guy of a private army that he was going to use, to continue to maintain his power as essentially the new emperor of Japan, more or less. He's going to be an emperor without a crown. So they dissolved these two groups, and somehow this works. It shouldn't have worked because, the first point, the Yakuza are an organized criminal structure. They have a head, and then they have positions going all the way down to grunts. If the head of these two major alliances said, like, hey, we're breaking up, and even if you got some of the top people behind that saying, yeah, we also agree, it wouldn't do anything. Because everyone who doesn't agree is just going to continue to run the operation as is. Your best case for them is, aside from, dodging bullets, that someone just basically takes over. And in The Man Who Erased His Name, we find out why the two top people who could have done that got taken out. The duology faction captured both these people and is used as operatives. So that explains why the two people didn't rise up to take positions. But even without these two people being central figures, other people in the organization could and should have taken over power. But even if they didn't, that gives you the second option, where everything's just going to devolve into a clusterfuck of everyone fighting each other for a couple of years. So either the organization itself completely dissolves and new groups are formed in its wake as various smaller groups form alliances, or there is no new group, or someone manages to reunify everybody. You're not going to have a scenario based on the management structure of Yakuza alone where the heads can just say, hey, we're done, and then everyone be done. That's not how organized crime works. It is not how it's ever worked. And throughout the franchise, a lot of times you're going up against people and working with people who literally defy their own leads. So magically now everyone agrees that, hey, we're just going to break up everything, even though crime makes a lot of money. That's just not going to happen. And then there's point two now. There are smaller Yakuza groups, and yes, Infinite Wealth talks about this, and I have not finished Infinite Wealth, so I do kind of suspect the second Great Dissolution, it might be a lie, and that these smaller groups are going to take over and maintain like a new alliance, or it might go forward. I haven't beaten the game. I just really haven't felt motivated to keep playing it because, again, the story is very lackluster. Even if you say these groups do, there's going to be smaller groups that are like not really formalized who are then going to rise up and take over. And if no group does manage, like say hypothetically, the impossible, you've achieved your best case scenario, and you dissolved every major criminal syndicate in Japan. In the Yakuza universe, there are criminal syndicates from outside Japan, from China, from South Korea. Throughout the franchise, you fight these people multiple times. They're just going to move in and take over. So even in the Great Dissolution's best case, it fails because someone else is just going to come in and take over. And somehow we're told that the Great Dissolution worked, and it's kind of hard to find the word for just a level of absurdity you were experiencing where under no logical, rational, or conceivable way something would work, and you're being told that it's working. Like, we are denying human nature, the in-universe laws, the in-universe rules, everything that we've come to know about just reality itself in the Yakuza Like a Dragon franchise's characters, and just nothing's playing out how it logically should have. And that just leaves me at the point where it's like, how do I put into words how absolutely absurd this is without just explaining how absolutely absurd this is in a step-by-step fashion? And then here's the best part. So a lot of these Yakuza people can't re-enter the workforce because there's a law in the universe saying that you can't own a phone, you can't have a bank account, and have a bunch of other stuff if you were a Yakuza for 5 years. And somehow this did not get struck down in the courts. It did not get, made rule unconstitutional from the Japanese Constitution. Now, maybe this actually would be constitutional underneath the Japanese Constitution. I don't know. I have not researched the Japanese Constitution, so I may be wrong. But you'd have a damn good argument of this getting Japan sued under international courts for a human rights abuse. Now, that process takes a while because you have to go through your own court systems before the international courts will even entertain the idea of hearing you out. And it's very expensive. But keep in mind, a lot of former Yakuza are going to have a considerable amount of money. So somehow this didn't get struck down. So the Yakuza can't find work when all the Yakuza groups had front businesses. Yeah. So rather, keep in mind, here in America, there's this pizza place, right? And it was a front for the mafia. The mafia set it up so they could launder their money. I forget the name of this pizza place, but it's really famous. Just Google mafia ran pizza joint. So they found out that the pizzeria was making more money than all of their crime combined. Like every section of their criminal enterprise was making less money than a singular pizza place. So the Don, he said, like, hey, look, we're getting out of organized crime. We could just make pizza because there is no risk to us and it makes more money. We're not going to risk going to prison by making pizza. And this is how this famous pizza place got its start. So you're telling me that with all these shipping companies and warehouse companies and real estate companies and various other companies that you have as fronts to launder your money, that you couldn't employ all your people after you abolished the Yakuza? Really? For real. Like, this should not even have been a problem. And this goes into the second part of the rant. So we find out from the Japan Times that localizers are having a great impact in reshaping narratives in Japan. So the story is being altered before it even comes to the West, which we've heard of this before, but now they're trying to defend localizers as some group in Japan is pushing a lot of money to get AI to replace them. So it appears that there is some kind of power struggle going on right now where one side wants to defend localizers, ESG, DEI, And I just recently learned this, that they're rebranding this stuff. So DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusivity, is being rebranded as equity and restorative justice, while ESG is going to be taken behind the scenes and called stakeholder metrics. You can thank Davos for this latest scheme. So you have what appears to be one faction who wants to keep pushing this stuff, making stuff woke, because they want to cowtail and be chummy with these globalists. And then you have another faction, which I suspect are probably actual Yakuza tied, because there's actually a rumor that the AI started getting pushed because some localizer royally screwed up some big time Yakuza's favorite character, and he just lost his mind over it. So, but either way, the Yakuza do actually have, from what I've heard, cannot confirm, a huge influence in the entertainment industry. Yeah, so when you're told that, hey, the Yakuza are being dissolved, that's how absurd this is. They do actually have a lot of influence in various, realms in Japan. Like, they're not just going to go away magically. Part of that is confirmed. There was like a famous story with Sega and the Yakuza. So, the actual Yakuza. So this brings up an interesting point where there actually might be some kind of power struggle behind the scenes involving the actual Yakuza, which would be really ironic for the point of this rant, and globalists. They want to defend localizers, so they admitted in the Japan Times, and I'm going to link the Hirohei video on this, where the head of or some prominent person at Sega is defending the localization changes in Yakuza, so you can see what's going on in the description. And this other faction, they want to push AI and just replace localizers. So these localizers in the West are no longer going to have this huge influence and change the medium in Japan, which would mean that the Japanese would remain Japanese. It wouldn't be just Western slop with a lower budget, because that right now is quite literally what a lot of Japanese companies are becoming. And yes, this matter is way more complex. You have the current president who is trying to invite BlackRock into the country. He is apparently wildly unpopular. I've not been kept up too much with Japanese politics, so I'm just hearing this secondhand with no correction, so I believe it to be true. What's going to happen then? I believe Sega's going to be in for a very rude awakening, because Ichiban in Yakuza Infinite Wealth is a simp. Set aside all the issues of them changing the translation with feminist insertion, which really killed a lot of my hype for this game, to be lectured about strong, independent women and being sexist. Like, that is literally in the first part of this game when I'm listening to a damn near hour-long cutscene broken up interspersely with a tiny sliver of gameplay, where I get to walk to another location to hear this after the main character proposed to a girl he liked on their first date. Ichiban went from being this inexperienced guy who spent a good chunk of time in prison because he took the rap for a murder he didn't commit, to now being, I really hate to use this phrase, because I have never heard someone use the word incel unironically and have their opinion be worthwhile, but holy crap, does it apt here. And this is how I think that you have some localizer influence, because Ichiban is acting like a stereotypical incel. He's acting like an incel simp, to the point where literally in the game, when you start the dating quest sideline, you literally get told off by this purple-haired fake psychic that, hey, which again, there you go, materialism. So you can really feel the Western influence really seeping in here. Like, hey, you're acting basically like a simp. Like, you're acting like a joke. You're not together with her. You're not cheating on her. Which this guy, okay, mine at this point in the story, and again, there might be some revelation later in the game. I have not felt super motivated to keep playing this game. I'm enjoying Palworld. At this point in the game, she has not even returned a text for months. Like, she is no longer even talking to Ichiban. They're basically done. She was polite and said they should remain friends, but it's very clear to anyone who's watching, like, bro literally just creeped her out massively. And again, there's probably going to be some revelation later in the game where Ichiban needs to learn to be a good little, slave because, a man needs to learn his place. You can't be toxically masculine. Oh, no, 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 no. Until I get there, I really can't say one way or the other. A lot of people aren't going to get past the first 4 hours of this game just from the statistical fact that a lot of people never finish games. Like it's between teens to 20 percentile in the 20 percentile range of people actually finish games. So if you actually finish games, you're actually in a small minority. Congratulations to you. So you have this character that is just no longer appealing to the general audience. Like in the Yakuza series, man, I really gotta start calling this game Like a Dragon. Screw it, Yakuza series. It has been primarily demographic toward men. And men nowadays are just done with this. You have to be useful to women. They're done listening to this. You have to be a simp. You have to know your place. You're done hearing about toxic masculinity. So Ichiban as a main character is just entirely tainted. I can't tell you how many people are just going to drop off because of that. And that's the scary part. I don't think there's going to be a Sega boycott. What I think is going to happen is way worse. You're going to have a quiet walkaway. And quiet walkaways are way more dangerous than boycotts. Boycotts are a negotiation. Stop doing what we don't want you to do, and some of us will return. Quiet walkaways, they're done. They don't even care enough to tell you to go fuck yourself. They're just going to stop buying your stuff, and you're going to be left like, hey, wait, what's wrong? What's wrong? We put a lot of really cool features into Yakuza 9. Why aren't you buying this game? And they're just going to hear deathly silence because they don't care anymore. And that's kind of how I feel about Yakuza. Like, I'll finish Infinite Wealth. I'm definitely going to finish this. Maybe. You'll see my Let's Play on my channel if you so want to watch it and see how it shapes up yourself. Got to do a lot of the side activities. So, there's going to be a pretty long Let's Play. I'll probably get, 60 hours out of this game. Because I do like doing the side stuff. The only game I really didn't do a lot of side stuff was in The Man Who Erased His Name, and that's because it was literally a spinoff with absolutely no impact on the overall plot. But that's a completely different issue. Having a character that is just no longer likable and relatable, who just leaves a sour taste in your mouth after you're defending and insulting the fan base, is just a recipe for absolute failure. What's going to happen, and I think this is going to happen, because keep in mind this, right? If you're just going to give us the same woke slop the West does with lesser production values, there's no reason for us to play your shit. Absolutely none. When the next game comes out, depending on how much they double down on this translation changes and letting localizers influence the story in Japan, because I really think the upcoming Persona games, they're already changing stuff to be more culturally sensitive. And by the way, when you ever hear the word culturally sensitive, they mean placate Marxists. They don't, because most people, I'm not going to get into it. And then people wonder, well, what do you talk about games and politics so much? Why do they keep putting politics in games so much? That's another argument altogether. But on topic, you're going to have a lot of people just not buy the next Yakuza game, or they're just going to have them go into it, and there's going to be less hype. And then Sega's going to be like, hey, why are you not buying our Yakuza game? With the upcoming economic situation causing money to restrict, you're going to have Sega in a position where they're going to have to really work to earn our money, and they're not going to have the luxury of institutional investments to keep them afloat. So they're going to be in real panic mode. You're going to have a lot, and they're not going to be the only company. You're going to have a lot of companies who are going to be in absolute panic mode as they try to convince you that you need to buy their stuff when you don't have a lot of money to spend anymore because you're in an economic crisis. We're in a new Great Depression, the second Great Depression, or maybe World War III. You're going to have companies need you. And as people said in the comments to Sega, as right now they're doubling down on this, it's we don't need you. And it's true. We don't need your woke slop. We have Western woke slop. We have indie games here. We have AA games. And there's plenty of Japanese companies who are smaller, who are more than happy to not delve into ESG stakeholder metrics, DEI, or equity and restorative justice, they are more than happy to just give us what we want. And if they're not, there will always be someone who is willing to go independent and give it to us. So until these assholes go complete totalitarian and take over every means of distribution, you can never foist upon us the need to buy your shit. And here's the best part, and the absolute best part, and as RG has said before, and I wholly concur with this sentiment, I don't need to play games. If I lost games, I can just pick up reading. I could get into comics, old manga, all this stuff. There are so many other things I could do other than play games. And if I really, 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 really need to play games, I mean, there's a bunch of old games I can just mod, play. I could pick up coding. So, yeah, no, Sega, we don't need you. And it's about time a lot of these companies like start to realize we don't work for you. We don't owe you a sale. You owe us a good product. And if you don't want to provide a good product, well then. And Sega's going to learn that lesson the hard way. I don't know when. I don't know what the triggers are going to be. Because we have a complex situation beginning to unfold of an economic crisis in World War III. So, I mean, it's going to just be hard to predict this. But at a certain point in time, you're going to have Sega and all these other game companies being put in a position where they're going to need to cater to us, the customer. And they're going to have all this woke slop. So you're going to see, there's probably going to be like a huge delay of so many games as they start stripping out the woke slop from their games. And the companies, though, the best part is the companies that just kept giving us what we wanted, they're just going to get big. And companies like Sega, now they can just get forgotten. Because at the end of the day, you're not needed. None of you are. That's all I got to say about that. Thanks for listening to my rant. Peace out.